you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now. Got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now. Got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years is Raymond Mark.
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. And Mr. McGuire, how are you today, my friend?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jimmy. Feeling good. Ready for a big night of hockey. Lots of games tonight. Late night working with Tony Marinara at 12:30 tonight.
Ooh.
On the Sick Podcast after the Montreal Canadiens go into Vancouver and see what they have.
Here, you're going to need
game
one
left
of these.
in this trip. There you go.
Sick Podcast coffee mug that our great production staff gave me for Christmas. You're going to need to pour some coffee into one of those and rally the troops. I'm glad you got a gift from them because I've yet to receive any gifts from them. Oh, oops. I will say that I know you don't need the coffee because the energy and love and passion you have for the sport will keep you awake there. Pierre, listen, there's some things. I was at the Brad Marchand press conference today that he held in Boston with the Boston media, saying his goodbyes to them. And he really was amazing. He went for over a half hour, kudos to him. Had some great stuff to say. There's some stuff in terms of his contract that I want to talk about later. And it carries more into some general things that I want to talk about, reporting and rumors and all that. And I want to get into that with you later because there was obviously something that came out of Buffalo with Rasmus Dahlin today. But we do have our guests right now. So let's get right into the Panthers talk. And some Marchand stuff as well with our good friend George Richards of Florida Hockey Now. Join us here right now on the Eye Test. How you doing, brother?
Hey, guys. What's happening?
All good, George. Nice to see you.
Good to see you guys. What's going on? What's happening? Huh?
I know. The world is upside down. Brad Marchand is a Florida Panther now.
It's crazy. You know what? We had a long week going into the trade deadline, and you think you can take a breath, and it just keeps going. It's been fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, just thinking about how fun it will be for opponents to play against a line of Bennett, Marchand, and Tkachuk when they're eventually all healthy together. That is going to be not a lot of fun, I would imagine, for the opponents, George.
Yeah, no, I would not think that's a fun matchup at all for anybody. That's for the Panthers. I mean, that could be a lot of fun, but those three together is just chaos.
Yeah.
Speaking of chaos, how chaotic is it around the ownership suite in Florida after the Matthew Tkachuk injury situation at the Four Nations?
You know what? It depends on how serious it is. I mean, obviously they're keeping things under the wraps. They're talking about, they hope he's ready for the playoffs. I mean, there have, no word on surgery or anything of the sort. So as long as he's back for the playoffs, guess what? The Panthers were able to go out at the trade deadline and make some moves because of it. So by putting Matthew Tkachuk on LTIR, they were able to do some things. And, Brad Marchand certainly would not be here if that had not happened. So, and probably Seth Jones wouldn't have either. I mean, they might have been able to make it work, but it certainly would have been a lot more difficult.
When you heading into the deadline, I mean, let's just say you're within 10 days to 7 days heading into the deadline. What were you expecting this team to address? What were certain needs you said, they could shore that area up of their game?
Basically everything that Florida did. They wanted a top four defenseman, which those guys are hard to find. You saw what it cost Florida to get Seth Jones out of Chicago. So they addressed that. They got a top four right-handed defenseman with him. They addressed the bottom four depth. They went out and they got a Sturm from San Jose. He's now their fourth line center. They improved that position. One that was manned last year so well. So they were able to address that. The backup goalie, there was no issue there. They had Spencer Knight, but once you traded him away, you needed a replacement. Bringing in Vitek from San Jose was also a big move. So they were able to make some things happen and pinpoint their needs, and they were able to fix it.
Yeah, Sturm replaced Kevin Stenlund, who did such a good job. He's out in Utah right now. I agree with you 100% on that, George. Here's what I'm wondering is how much did Bill Zito talk about previous relationship with Seth Jones when they went out and got him and their time in Columbus together?
That had a lot to do with it, right? I mean, Seth Jones hasn't had a good run of it in Chicago, so I think a lot of maybe his stock had certainly fallen. I mean, when you remember back to 2021 when the Chicago Blackhawks made that deal, it was a blockbuster. It was like, oh my gosh, Chicago, what that man, they might be back. They just got Seth Jones, and things have gone south for the Blackhawks and for Seth Jones. And I think Seth Jones kind of got dragged down in that wake. And Bill Zito knows Seth Jones from his days in Columbus and was able to bring him in here. And my goodness, Seth Jones looks like Seth Jones again. And just with the Panthers, He looked great from the first shift. He's looked terrific.
That's really well said. And penalty killing such a big thing. When you lose Montour and you lose Oliver Ekman-Larsson, you need bodies back there. And Seth can eat up minutes. And that's something Paul Maurice knows. Sylvain Lefebvre knows that. I love the way you said that, George, because I agree with you. You're spot on that.
Yeah, George, and now with Aaron Ekblad out, I'm sure Jimmy's going to bring that out. I mean, Seth Jones being here is huge. So,
what I was actually going to bring up is, I asked Paul Maurice just about how good this team is of letting guys fit in, and also Brad Marchand was asked about it as well. So I'm going to play these clips, and I just want you to respond to that because you've been around the locker room for a while there. So let's go to this Paul Maurice clip right now.
Really fun room. We have a lot of different personalities. It's not all the same guy. Like, I don't know, I got to point them out, but we got some strange dudes in there. I guess the coach is one of them, but that's what makes it fun. So bring your own personality, be exactly who you are. Don't ever try to be somebody that you're not, because that's not what we traded for. We want, if you're funny, be funny. If you're not, just sit there and laugh. Whatever it is that who you are, be yourself. And I think when you come into maybe a more veteran team, you have a better chance of doing that.
And then here's Brad Marchand kind of echoing the same sentiments there about being himself.
Good personalities in that group, and I know a bunch of guys in the team already, and I think the personality is how you get to know the guys that you don't know. I think that's one of the things is like I'm pretty easygoing. I feel like I can talk to anybody, and that's how you build connections and chemistry. So no, I don't plan on toning it. Do you think I need to tone it down? No, my wife does. So yeah, I'm just going to be me.
So George, that was a great line. I just want to ask you, since Paul Maurice got there, has that kind of been something that he stressed where, look, if you bring a new guy in, we just want you to be you. You don't have to so much adapt to us. You'll fit in by being you. Is that something you've noticed?
I think it's been growing here for a while, but who I'll give you the credit for this? Sasha Barkov, right? And I know what you're saying, and let me explain myself. Sasha Barkov is the quietest guy in the world, but when he talks, people listen. He leads by example. Everybody down here in South Florida, when they named him captain, were like, how do you have a captain like that? He's not rah. Matthew Tkachuk should be the captain. This guy should, because he's all the time. That's not Sasha Barkov, but every player in that room, and Brad Marchand talked about Sasha Barkov today, every player in that room will go to the ends of the world for Sasha Barkov. And that allows Matthew Tkachuk to be the loud guy over here with Sam Bennett snickering and Aaron Ekblad doing his thing and all these guys, but they're all one and they all get together so well. And like Paul Maurice was saying in that clip, if you're not the funny guy, just sit back and laugh. And that's Barkov 9 times out of 10. But on the 10th time, he's going to zing you, and you don't even know you've been zinged. And that's the thing that the players love. They're like, he's got such a dry sense of humor that you walk away and you're like, dude, he just ripped me. And they all laugh and they have a good time about it. So it's a fun room to be in. And again, and everybody fits right in. Sergei Bobrovsky, not a very outspoken guy, but a guy that everybody in there respects, and he goes along with the group. And be who you want to be. And Paul Maurice, he's like, I never even go in there. I just leave those guys alone, because we'll ask him about post-game stuff and he doesn't even see. He knows exactly what's going on. That's the thing about Paul Maurice. Yeah. He knows everything that goes on. He just acts like he doesn't.
See, I'm gonna ask you a tough question then, bitch, on what you just said, George. Did he know about Aaron Ekblad?
No, no, because I think it was a drug test. I mean, I don't think he's taken steroids or anything. I mean, I think he was probably taking some kind of supplement that, his wife is a doctor. I don't know. Maybe it was just one of these things. He had a shoulder. I don't know. I have no idea. But I don't think he was it was an open thing. Like he was like, there's, steroid. It's not like the 1980 Miami Hurricanes where, the steroids were being passed around in duffel bags. I think he just failed a drug test, and that's the thing.
And the reason why I asked that is the last time we had this was 2018. It was Nate Schmidt, who's one of his teammates.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so I'm just curious if
until the NHL starts telling us what exactly what things are, we just have to guess or find out later, because they don't tell you what it was. Was it HGH for a knee injury, or was it something? Was it the cream? Was it the we don't know.
That's why I'm asking.
It could have been cold medicine for all we know. Who knows? Yeah, the NHL doesn't tell us, so we're in the dark, and everybody's just guessing. The first thing I saw was he must be coked up out of his mind.
No.
No.
That's the reason why I'm asking. I know Aaron Ekblad is a player and a person, and I know Nate Schmidt is a player and a person. So when I found that out, I was like, whoa.
Absolutely. I don't know where that's. And I'm not carrying water for Aaron Ekblad. I've known him since he was 17 years old. But yeah, it sounds like a mistake to me. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe he's a guy going into his final year of his contract and wanted a little something extra. I don't know. It's complete speculation. It could have been something in his cough medicine. Nobody knows. But he said he was taking something to recover from an injury, which leads me to believe it was some kind of regenerative thing that got snapped up. So one of those deals. You never know. Nope. But until the NHL tells us,
Yep. I don't know what. George, what's the latest you're hearing on the future of Sam Bennett with the Florida Panthers right now?
He's obviously a free agent, but we had this conversation last year when it came to Sam Reinhart. I think the same rules apply. Neither of these, Sam Reinhart didn't want to leave South Florida. Sam Bennett, I don't think, wants to leave South Florida, but with the salary cap going up, I think, maybe he wants to see what is out there. But I would think he stays. The Panthers have $20 million under the cap next season. When you hear the numbers that Brad Marchand turned down in Boston, he's not coming back here, not at those kind of dollars. So you're still looking at the $20 million for Ekblad and Bennett, and then you're going to leave yourself about $6 million to add to that. Mackie Samoskevich is RFA. You've got to re-sign him. But all the other heavy lifting for the Panthers is done. Carter Verhaeghe's got a new contract. So listen, these guys all end up staying here. They don't want to leave a good thing. The Panthers, this is not a flash in the pan. This team is built, for the next 5, 6, 7 years when all these guys' contracts run out. Seth Jones signed alongside Matthew Tkachuk, Sasha Barkov, Reinhart's in the first year of an 8. So the core of this team is here. And it sounds like they want to re-sign Sergei Bobrovsky when his deal ends next year. So they're keeping the band together, and Sam Bennett is a gigantic part of that.
I know it's not a big thing to discuss, especially when it's not as sexy as the NHL players. Are they concerned at all about their organizational depth chart?
Not really. No. I mean, you just look at how many first round draft picks they've sent away. I mean, they don't have one till, I think they might have the 2027. They don't have a 28 probably. I mean, I mean, they're finding players in weird places. I mean, they spend a lot of money on scouting. They spend a lot of money on that front office. Uvis Balinskis, one of their defensemen, they signed him as a 25-year-old defenseman out of the Czech league. Nobody even knew he was around, and the Florida Panthers have him in their lineup. So they're able to find players. They're able to bring in other guys. They're able to sign college free agents for depth. They know they're out of top draft, but they'd be drafted 28th, 29th anyway. So if they can find some other ways around that, they're not picking, first 5 at top 5 anymore. Those days are gone. So they're not looking for that kind of player, but they're looking to develop players and stock their depth chart. Sure.
George, players, coaches, they're never going to tell you who they want to face in the first round of the playoffs and what matchup they want. But in your opinion, how important is it for them to win that division and avoid that 2-3 matchup in the Atlantic?
I don't know, because it's, they're going to have to face Tampa anyway, right? I mean, that was kind of the thought last year when Boston gave Florida the Atlantic, right? They did. They did. In those final 4 games, Boston we don't want to play Tampa. You guys deal with it. And Florida was cool with it. Florida wanted to play Tampa just because they had to, right? They had to get past Tampa won, so they've already done that. I don't know if they want to match up with them again. But I don't think Florida's like Tampa. Florida and Tampa now do not care. Tell us where we're playing game one. Is it home? What time and who we playing? If we're on the road, what city are we going to? Who wins game one? I don't think they care. And if you want to talk about, maybe they'd like to play, one of the, the wild card teams. But even then, you look at the teams that are making the wild card, they're going to have to run their way in. They're going to be playing hot hockey for a long, for weeks on end.
2 years ago.
Yeah. So you really don't want to get into that mess either. So I think they just want to play the game. However it unfolds, they really, like last year, did not go for the Atlantic Division. It just happened. They won their games. Boston gave up theirs. That's how it happened. A couple of years ago when they were running for the President's Trophy, they didn't want that either, and it just was there for them. They just won some games, and it was there. So I don't think that they have a team in mind that they would like to play or not like to play, but because they know how good the hockey is between them and Tampa. So.
Did people talk at all internally or around the team, George, about Toronto's acquisitions and the types of players Toronto has?
Not really. I haven't heard anybody from the Panthers talk about Toronto, and I'm not disparaging them at all. But Florida hasn't played Toronto. They're now they're going to finally play 18 games. I think they have 3 against Toronto. They haven't even played them, so that out of sight, out of mind. Toronto's the team that's in second place in the division. They've been atop the division for a long time. It's a 3-team race now, right, with Tampa, Toronto, and Florida for the top 3 in that division. But I think it was more Toronto to react to what Tampa and Florida was doing, more so than anything that Florida and Tampa were looking at Toronto. Toronto may end up winning the Atlantic. They just might, and we'll have to see. They have a whole different test in front of them than these other two do, based on their past.
Awesome, good stuff, George. Well, we appreciate you taking the time as always, my friend. Enjoy the playoffs. We'll get you on sometime during the postseason. I got a feeling it's going to be a long one down there, so enjoy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, George. Thank you, George. Thank you very much.
Florida Hockey Now does a great job covering the Panthers. Check him out.
He tells it the way it is, Jimmy. He just lays it out there, and he's not a shill. If he doesn't like something, he's going to say it. If he likes it, he's going to say it. He's got a beat on the team. He knows the team. That's why I asked him about the organizational depth chart. They know as managing people, they got some deficiencies. They better hope all these guys stay healthy. And he's right about Balinskis. Nobody knew about Balinskis. He's absolutely right about that. I'm going to say that's a Rick Dudley special. Nobody spends more time in rinks than Rick Dudley. I'm going to say that's a Rick Dudley special.
Rick Dudley's great. When you were talking about the leadership group that Bill Zito has built there yesterday, Pierre, I had slightly forgotten that Rick Dudley was there. And, I met Rick Dudley way back, and you can vouch for me that this guy's a lifer. When they define a hockey lifer, he's like one of those people that comes up in the examples in the dictionary.
Rick Dudley scored one of the most amazing goals in the history of the Montreal Forum, and nobody even knows it. He was wearing a red headband. I think he had just had a hair transplant, so that's why he's wearing the red headband. Okay. And he went coast to coast against the Montreal Canadiens. It's on YouTube. It's in the mid-1970s. And those were the great Canadian teams, the teams that had won 5 Stanley Cups. Most of those players are still there. And every time I see Rick on the road, I always remind him, I said, you broke my heart as a kid. It was the only goal I could tell. Not even Bobby Orr, and he did a lot of big things against Montreal. Never scored a goal like that against the Canadiens in the Forum. It was unbelievable. And I encourage everybody, if you get a chance, just go Google Rick Dudley goal Montreal Forum, and hopefully it'll pop up for you. It's an amazing goal. He's got this red head. He's playing for the Buffalo Sabres. It's an amazing goal.
That's awesome.
And by the way, Jimmy, Rick Dudley was probably a better lacrosse player than he was a hockey player. Mm-hmm. And like back in those days, lacrosse guys really fought. Everybody says, "Oh, the hockey guys fight." The lacrosse guys really fought. Rick Dudley was one tough piece of business. He was a nasty piece of business.
Yeah, I love talking hockey with him. Was he part of the Tampa staff when they won it in 2004?
I don't know if he was part of the staff. He was there before that because that was John Tortorella and Jay Feaster were there. Rick might have been Rick may have been scouting there. He may have been. I'm not sure on that, but that was John Tortorella and
he was still around then in those days. Yeah, he was still scouting.
He was.
I hear. All right, Pierre. So as I mentioned, there's a Marchand clip I want to play from today, and he's talking about how the team they knew this was probably coming, that Don Sweeney was going to have to blow the team up and start over. And I asked him point blank, did you see yourself being part of this? So let's go to that right now, and I'll come back, and I got a question for you. There's potential for things like this to happen, and unfortunately it did.
And you felt like there was potential you could be part of
that? Yeah, I mean, it came to the point where I'm not going to get in a private conversation, but yeah, I knew that it was potential.
Okay, so, a lot of people obviously in Boston, understandably so, the fan base was caught off guard, the media was caught off guard. But it's interesting to hear that he himself sensed this could be coming down the pike there. And I want to combine that with the fact that we're hearing a lot of reports out there that the sticking point on the contract negotiations with the Bruins was AAV and money. And he said today in an earlier quote, and I couldn't clip it there, but it was really quick. Somebody said to him, what's more important to you, money or term? He flat out said it was term. So my point to you, and I want you to get your thoughts on this, is that there's so many, you got to be careful heading into, at, and post trade deadline of all the reports you hear, because I think a lot of people out there, and I'm not naming names, but I think there's a lot of people, and some with pretty big reputations, are playing the guessing game, Pierre.
We've had this discussion before.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know, don't say.
Exactly.
Just say, I'm sorry, I don't know. Don't make stuff up.
And what's interesting is I'm seeing, I tweeted out that he mentioned it was term, and there's still people after this saying, no, it was money.
Okay.
I mean, this is the horse's mouth saying it. Like, what more do you want to prove?
So you can't worry about that part of the population. They're never going to listen to you anyways, because their mind's already made up. What I remember telling you, you would ask me a lot before Jake Evans got signed by the Canadiens. I said, I believe they'll find a way to get Jake Evans signed. Yep. It comes down to, does Jake Evans' camp want term, or do they want dollars? Do the Canadiens want term, or do they want less dollars? Mm-hmm. That's what it's going to come down to. Yep. And they did a 4-year deal. I thought it'd be 5. They did a 4-year deal. I thought it'd be anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 million. They did a 4-year deal, and it's 2.75. I'm not trying to pretend I'm an insider, but here's the difference. This is the difference. I've actually sat in those rooms. I've done those deals. Mm-hmm. I've looked agents in the eye. Mm-hmm. I don't know any of the insiders that have ever done that. So how are they getting their information? They're getting their information from agents at Leak, from teams at Leak, from underlings that work in front offices at Leak. Mm-hmm. Well, not all, I hate to tell you this, and this is for the fans, not all those people doing the leaking are completely plugged in.
Exactly.
Because you get to a point in a negotiation where it becomes very small in terms of the group that have knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I've shared this with, and I'm not afraid to say it, Jimmy. I've told you this away from the microphone, but I'll say it now. I've told Jimmy to be really careful when you're dealing with those kinds of reports, because you don't know who's providing the information.
Yep.
And that's why on this show, we don't utilize that stuff. And we never will. And Jimmy knows I get mad when we try.
Yep, exactly. And the other thing too, Pierre, is like, and I don't think, the average fan isn't going to know this, but we said it a couple of times. People have agendas. They're going to feed you stuff to help themselves out and to maybe further their career or, accomplish something they want to, and they'll do it through the media. Example A today, I'm driving back and you say, hey, did you see what happened with Rasmus Dahlin? Somebody reported he wanted a trade. He wanted out of Buffalo, and he immediately denied it. And he said he was insulted and he was pissed off about it. And this is it's gotten out of control, Pierre. It really has.
That's an agenda-driven one. No, that's an agenda-driven one, and you just said that really well. That pained me to read that. So I'll just say this again. I'd like to know the people that are doing this reporting on Rasmus Dahlin. How many of them actually watched him play in Sweden? How many of them actually have met with him? How many have ever watched him play as an 18-year-old in the NHL? How many of them know what he's been going through in Buffalo, because the team has grossly underachieved since he's been there, and it's not his fault. The one thing I can tell you, because I used to do a lot of their games, I said until they figure out what they want him to do as a player. Do they want him to be a pucks transporter? Do they want him to be a shutdown defenseman? Do they want to be a power play specialist? Until they can figure out his identity as a player, he will never get to the level he should be because he's an elite talent. He is an elite competitive person. But I think that's been one of the flaws of the organization. They haven't identified how they want him to play.
Right. But did anybody ever think to ask him and say, "Hey, are you happy?
No, this is the problem.
Yeah.
This is the
Go
problem.
right to the guy. And I know a lot of times you're not going to get a straight answer. You might not get an answer at all, but at least you tried to go right to the source. And that's what's bugging me today about journalism. I'm sorry I had to get that off.
Yeah, no, we're a hockey show, so I get it, and I understand you're a professional and you're trying your best to even go to another level, and I really respect that. The only thing I'd say to people out there is you don't have to be first. It's really important to be right.
Exactly.
People will respect you a lot more when you're right than if you're first. They will. You're not running a race here.
No.
You're not. This is the one thing that pains me a little, Jimmy. You're dealing with people's lives, so it's easy to sit at a keyboard and write nasty things about people. That's easy to do. How about acknowledging that the person's actually in the arena? They're actually competing. They're actually doing something you wish you could probably do.
I'm so glad you brought up the point about dealing with people's lives, Pierre, because in the beginning of that press conference today, I asked Brad, I said, look, describe the last 4 days of your life to us. I imagine it's been a whirlwind. And he said, of course, but the common theme of what he was trying to get across to us that he said he never realized, and he blamed himself for not taking the time to have the empathy to realize it, was how much a trade can change somebody's life off the ice, especially guys that have families like him now, and what it's like to go through that, what it's like to have to explain to your kids, hey, daddy's going to be away for a couple months now. I'm sorry. I don't, just to deal with that and put that burden on your significant other or other people in your life that are part of your family or your surroundings. And I thought that was really interesting that he gave a really human inside look to that. And I think that's something a lot of people forget at this time of year.
I think the only time he was ever traded was right after the World Junior, when he got traded in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, which is what it was called back then. You'd have to look it up, Jimmy. I think that's the only time in his career that he was ever traded. I think he went to Rouen-Noranda, if I remember correctly, from out in the Maritimes. All that being said, that's why we don't like to put players' names out when there's speculation. Unless we know that player is going to move, we don't try to put names out there. And Jimmy, was that?
Yep.
Do you see it? Do you see his?
Yeah, it's
record?
actually, Pierre, I don't know if it was a result of trades or not. It doesn't specify. It would have to be, right, in the queue. That's the only way you can move teams.
Yeah. So I think he finished in Rouen, right?
No, he actually finished in Halifax.
Halifax. So where did he
started in? He did 2 seasons in Moncton, and then he went to Val d'Or.
Okay. And then he went to Halifax. He's been traded. So that's the only time. That's the only time in his career he's ever been traded. Those 2 times. So that's when he has no family. His family's in the Maritimes. I remember Rouen's near Val d'Or. That's the big rivalry up north in Quebec. So I knew he was up there. And then eventually he ends up in Halifax. So, yeah, I get it.
But he's already he's like you said, he's young. He's got no family then. He's already living home. It's whatever,
Yep, exactly.
But now it's a whole different thing. And he, it was really interesting to see him give that inside look. And it makes you remember that. And it's a good refresher for people in my position, being a reporter. So good stuff.
I miss going to Moncton. I used to stay at the Hotel Beau Séjour. I miss it. And there was a nice little bar right next door called Ziggy's. I miss it. For those that are watching in Moncton, it's no relation to Ziggy's in Montreal.
Okay.
For those that are in Moncton that are old school hockey people, I miss the Hotel Beau Séjour and I miss going into Moncton.
Jeez, Pierre. That's you remember you were saying last week how you're going to write a book? And I said, well, maybe 2. I'm thinking now maybe 3. And the third one's going to be a tour guide.
There was another good spot. There was another good spot in Moncton called the Shipyard. It was a good spot too. That was a good spot.
Any place called the Shipyard is usually a good place.
Back in the day, that was a good spot.
Yeah, good stuff. That's so weird too, because I was after the thing was over today, I was talking to Marchand, and I said, I just remember you when you were young, and we ended up after a game. There used to be a place in Charlestown, Mass, and the whole team was there, and Thornton invited us. It was great, and it was called the Shipyard. and it was a good little place. Anyhow, Pierre, quickly before we move on to games tonight and to our Q&A, last night, you and I were talking about it on my way down to Boston today. The Ottawa-Detroit game, first of all, I don't think a lot of what people expected. I think a lot of people looking at that game coming in thinking it's going to be high scoring, back and forth. It was kind of a game of chicken for a while.
Yeah.
I was surprised, as I told you, that the Red Wings didn't come out with more urgency.
Me too. That's why I'm shaking my head. They've lost 6 in a row now, Jimmy. They're not playing their way in, they're playing their way out.
Yeah.
And when you look at all the great things, that Todd McClellan did when he got there, they've basically evaporated now. And it's not, I don't think he didn't change how he coaches.
Nope.
He didn't, so they've got some things they're going to have to do, and they got to flip the switch pretty quick, or they're not going to make it. And that's, I thought they were trending. Todd's done a real good job there. I thought they were trending the right way, and all of a sudden, they just can't get over the hump. So,
like I said, I'd like to make that point quickly, Pierre. Because Marchand mentioned it today about the Bruins here. When you're in that position and you're in that locker room and you just feel it slipping away, and it's like you just can't stop it. It's like that train crash. You're waiting to see, you're watching slowly, and it's happening. Yeah. How do you reel a team in as a coach or maybe the leader in the dressing room? Like, what's the best thing you can do to kind of get that back on track?
You try so many different things. There's no set formula because every team's different. The characters on every team are different. I've done it the nice way, where you try to pat everybody in the back and say, look, we're going to get out of this. We're going to get out of it together. And I've tried it the hard way, and that doesn't really work, especially nowadays. I don't think that would work really well. So I think the biggest thing is you just have to evaluate the assets that you have. I think asset management is probably the best way to go about it. It's not so much about messaging anymore. It's about how you manage your assets. So if you have a player that's a scorer, you got to play him with guys that are going to help get him the puck. If you got a guy that's a checker and he's really good at it, you got to get him with guys that are going to check, and they're going to have an identity as a checking line, and you create those matchups. I think it's probably the only way you can get out. And then one of the ultimate ways of getting out of a mess, you get elite goaltending.
Yeah.
The goal, like last night, Ottawa never should have won that game.
No.
Ottawa won that game because they had one guy that went to another level, Linus Ullmark.
Yeah,
he went to a whole other level.
Amazing.
That might be the best game he's played in his career.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I really am.
I'm going to tell you, it's in the top 5 for him all time, and it might be his best.
And like you said, when that happens and a guy steals a game like that confidence sort of oozes out of him into the dressing room, and it pushes.
Yeah, we're going to see tonight in Philly. We'll see how it goes tonight in Philly. That's a tough turnaround, and Philly's been struggling. Everybody knows that. And John's going to coach hard. John wants to play the role of spoiler. He's going to coach hard, Torts. He is. And his players are going to play hard. I don't know if they'll be able to be good enough, but we'll see tonight. We'll see.
Be a thorn in their side. Quickly, Pierre, to the other game, too, that if I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan right now, I'm going, what the heck was that in Buffalo?
Well, Stuart Skinner, I mean, look, I think he's an NHL goalie. I don't think he's a starter. We've said this a million times. And, did he get his team to the Stanley Cup final last year? He 100% did. He got his team there. But a lot of what gets them there is they outscore their problems. They have game breakers like Draisaitl and obviously McDavid. Most teams don't have the luxury of having those kinds of game breakers. And then last year they had Evander Kane. They don't have Evander Kane now. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. You look at it. Zach Hyman had a 55-goal season last year. He's not doing that this year.
Yeah.
So, I think they still needed to address their need on defense. Losing Broberg and Cody Ceci, people don't even talk about that.
No.
Those guys were in their lineup last year at the playoffs.
And they ate a lot of minutes. Yeah. They helped them a lot.
I just don't know if they're deep enough on defense, and I don't know if their role players are good enough. And, again, Ryan McLeod's playing in Buffalo. He scored against his old team last night. I mean, Ryan McLeod's a useful guy. Now, just to be fair, all this stuff happened before Stan Bowman got there, by the way, just to play fair.
Yep.
He didn't have anything to do with this.
No, it was kind of in that in-between period there.
Yeah.
All right, quickly, let's get to our sponsors here, and then I'll give you my pick of the night, and then we'll get right into our Q&A. Let's talk about TCS Customs and Logistics. You can unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics, from around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. And then, of course, Betway. You can go right now, and even if you lose, if you're a new customer, if loses, they give you up to $200 credit. Love it. Go right there to that QR code in front of you. You can sign up there, or you can go to the details section and create your account there. Again, this offer is only available for new customers. It is not available in Ontario right now. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 plus and always bet responsibly. Let's get to the pick of the night.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by Betway.
All right, I'm going to start where I just was, over at TD Garden. The Boston Bruins are hosting the Florida Panthers, and you can get the Panthers right now on the puck line to win by 2 goals or more at plus 130. Look, I know the Bruins had a great performance in Tampa, and I give them a whole lot of credit for responding that way less than 24 hours after the trade deadline with their lineup in disarray. It was a really gutsy performance, but I think Florida is going to be locked in right now. They want to finish off strong, and I think they're going to take care of the Bruins tonight. So give me them on the puck line plus 130, and I'm going to combine that for a 2-team parlay. I know you don't like those parlays, Pierre, but I like the Montreal Canadiens to finally win here on this road trip. Wow. They are plus 124 underdogs in Vancouver. Man, Rick Tockett's never going to talk to me again. That's like 3 times I picked against the Canucks lately. But the Montreal Canadiens plus 124 on the money line to get their first win on this road trip. All right, let's go to the Q&A. Bill Van Vagel, simple question. Chances the Habs make the playoffs?
If they lose tonight, no.
Okay.
They got to win tonight.
I think they'll still be in it after tonight. They'll win. All right, next question. Dave Robinson. What's up, Dave? It is more likely that Fraser Minton is a top 6 or middle 6, or is it more likely that Fraser Minton becomes top 6 or middle 6 for the Bruins, and how soon either way?
I think Fraser can be a second-line center. I think he can be a lead third-line center. He's a good player. He's an NHL player, pure 200-foot player. He can be physical. He can be creative. He can be in your second power play. He's a top penalty killer. Very good acquisition. I like to get players like Toronto got. And we talked about how valuable Brandon Carlo was. To get a player like that in Toronto, you got to pay. And they paid. Fraser Minton's a big price to pay, but they paid.
When you're looking at the bodies that the Bruins got at the deadline, the actual roster bodies or guys that are on their AHL club now, do you think he has the best potential, Pierre?
Yes, I would say yes, to make an impact. So you've talked about it really well, I think, too, about the need to build through the middle. So Charlie's gone, Patrice Bergeron's gone, David Krejci's gone. You start to do it. I mean, look at the center ice play. They need help. Yep. He'll eventually be that guy. He'll be a good player for them. Fraser be a good player.
Next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, were you surprised that Marner was asked to waive? Randy, I'd say no, because I think I said it yesterday or the day before. Not to be yesterday. Like Trey Liven's doing his job to do that. Like if you don't do that, you don't know. Like he had to at least explore the opportunity. I'm not saying he should have traded him. I'm just saying I think he did his job.
I love what Jimmy just said. Really good point, Jimmy. Well said.
All right. Thank you. Next question. Postnet on 130. Assuming the cap keeps going up, what is the life cycle and years of, say, a Florida Panthers to continue to have comp ad contender status before injuries, age, lack of prospect catches up with them?
So I'll jump in, Jimmy.
Yeah, go for it.
There's no guarantee the cap's going up. It's projected to go. This has been one of the most misrepresented stories out there.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't said, yeah, the cap's definitely going up. It's been the projected cap. The projected. That's not done. So we're going to see. Anybody look at the stock market lately? So we'll see. Anybody look at the Canadian dollar lately? We'll see where this cap situation goes. I just asked George Richards, because I study this on a daily basis, organizational depth charts. Florida's is lacking. But it's lacking because they've paid the price to try to compete to win. And they've been in 2 straight final. There's a good chance they're going to be a very real player to win the cup again this year. they've laid it out there. I admire their ownership. I admire their management team. I admire their coaching staff, and I admire their players. They're laying it out there, which is great. If you're a fan of the team, you're happy.
Yeah.
But just remember, there's a toll that has to be paid.
Yep.
The Detroit Red Wings had 25 years of unbelievable grace. Jimmy, the last 9 years, there's been no unbelievable grace. The toll is being paid. The Pittsburgh Penguins had unbelievable runs, amazing runs. Since 2017, they've been paying the toll. That's just the reality of this whole thing. And so you need to know the last time the New York Rangers won the Cup was 1994.
Yep, I'm with you. And look at, we mentioned the Bruins ad nauseum here. They're about to start paying the toll too.
They took 3 trips. Chicago won the Cup in 2010, won the Cup in 2013, won the Cup in 2015. They're nowhere near the Cup, and they're not going to be near the Cup for a while. So you're looking, that's how it works. Yeah. And so you got to buck up and get ready for it. The Kings won in 12, they won in 14. The Kings aren't going there, the San Jose Sharks went to the Stanley Cup final in 2016. All right.
Yep.
Been to the finals since, have they?
No. I have to check their playoff record. I think once since then. I don't know off the top of my head.
But you see what my point is, you end up, you have success, but eventually you need to pay the toll.
It happens. It is the cycle of hockey life. All right, next question. Joe, gentlemen, regarding Montreal's second center issue, which center should the Habs be aggressive in acquiring by September? Beniers, a big lefty in a team with 3 top 6 centers. McTavish, maybe? Pierre, I'll let you address this one.
Well, I've always been a Matty Beniers fan. I've been watching him play since he's been 11 years old. Yep. So, but I don't think he's being traded.
No, I'd agree.
And I can tell you this with pure confidence that Mason McTavish isn't getting traded out of Anaheim either. So those are great names. Whomever proposed that question, those are phenomenal names.
Yeah.
I think that's a great eye. Those would be elite players for that situation for Montreal, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah. The one credit there too, I'm sorry, I forgot the name already that put it up. If you guys can put it up there again. There's one thing I want to credit in the question there that I thought was, you don't hear a lot when you put names out there, right? Like people say, oh, the Bruins should get this guy or the Canadians should get that guy. They tend to never really think of the opposite team situation. There we go.
Yeah. So it's
right?
Joe.
Joe. Okay. And Joe, credit to you for saying this. A big lefty in a team with 3 top 6 centers. So Joe is at least identifying, well, maybe because they have that depth there, they'd be willing to part with one of those guys. Yeah. So good on you for doing that. I urge a lot more fans to do that. Even some media, when you're pitching trade ideas, always put yourself in the shoes of the other team and would it make sense for them?
Yeah, so, Joe, good job. I like that, Joe. Good job. Great question.
I like that observation. All right, next question. David Robinson, thinking of Middlestad's game versus Coyle's. Do you guys think Middlestad can learn to use his body and play keep away to maintain possession a bit more to round out his offensive skills?
Hasn't happened yet. He's improved his body type. I think he needs to have a heavy summer wherever he is, whether it's back in Minnesota or staying in Boston. But I think the Bruins are aware of that, and I would not be surprised to see them have the end of the year meetings in Boston are going to be, I think, pretty solid. Because they know what they need to do to get to another level. And I think they want to try to speed this thing up. So that the end of the year exit meetings are going to be really vital for the Boston Bruins this year.
And you know what else, Pierre? I'm glad you just said that. Do you remember towards the end of training camp and into the beginning of the season, obviously the holdout by Swayman was a big conversation, but do you remember a lot of it? Like I think it was Sweeney said it, Montgomery said it at the time. I'm surprised we're not in the shape we should be at this point. We didn't like our preseason.
I do, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Okay, there you go.
So
I'm glad you said that.
It's important. Sometimes those are just exercises, and you have to have them. Everybody has an exit interview, so that's the exercise. Sometimes they need to be pointed, and sometimes the discussion isn't always nice.
No,
I've been part of some of them that have been pretty salty. So you've got to make sure that you know the guys that need to be awakened and the guys that need some time away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like with Bergeron, you didn't have to have that meeting.
No.
I'll give you this is for the people out there that, you know, you don't get this opportunity. I feel so blessed all the time I've had it. I was there at the NHL Awards to present one year. It was for the Vezina Trophy, actually. And I get to the gym around 5 a.m. because I just, you know, West Coast, East Coast. And Jimmy, you know, I get up really early. And I'm down there. And I turn around. I'm riding the bike. And I turn around. And there's a guy on the treadmill right behind me. And it's Patrice Bergeron. So we both worked out. I don't know. We were probably there an hour and a half or whatever. And I said, "How you doing, Bergie?" This and that. And he goes, "I'm good. I'm good." I go, "You got an early start?" He goes, "Oh, I want to be ready for next year. I want to really be ready." He's telling this is in June right after the Stanley Cup. Like, it's just amazing.
He's
so
unreal.
that guy didn't need to have that salty meeting at the end of the year. The Bruins know what they had in him, or they knew what they had in him.
Yep. Good stuff. I love that story. All right, next question. Ethan Russell, do you think Landeskog will be back for the playoffs?
No.
I don't, unfortunately, Ethan, especially based on watching some of this documentary. It's so. All right, next question. Michael Lemieux, hey, Jimmy, Pierre, who's taking Doba's spot? Have needed 13 wins minimum, right? I'm not sure I understand the question.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sorry. If you could rephrase it there, and we'll come back to you. All right, next question. Bill Van Vega, why do you think the Bruins wouldn't bend to give Marchand what he wanted financially, especially given reports Marchand's camp was willing to meet them halfway?
Because they wanted to cut the cord. They want to cut the cord.
Yeah.
They're moving on.
They're not.
They don't want any more discussion about last year or the year before. They don't want to talk about 11, 13. They don't want to talk about 19. They're moving. They don't want any holdbacks. It's all, we're moving in another direction.
There you go.
That's it. That's all. We're moving on.
Yep. Good for you.
It's a mean business. Trust me. It's a mean business.
All right. Next question. Mike Gaudette, if Nick Suzuki gets 7.875 million American, does that mean he gets 10.6 million Canadian?
Well, he gets paid in American money. They don't get paid in Canadian dollars. And teams hedge in the summer on buying U.S. dollars because that's how they do their business. The reason why it wasn't always like this in the league, I'll just give you a quick Cole's notes on it. The reason why they did it, it became an accounting nightmare when you traded a player from the United States to Canada or a Canadian player from Canada to the United States. And a lot of times teams in Canada would try to negotiate Canadian dollar contracts, and they would give more money to the players. And then when they were traded to the States, it would become less money. So they said, you know what? We're just going with one currency, and it's going to be the American greenback. And that's what happened. That's the Cole's Notes version. There's more to it than that, but that's just so everybody understands. That's how it started.
All right. Next question. FFFF. Pierre, which two NHL arenas have the best ice, and which two, in your opinion, have the worst?
Well, Edmonton is always up near the top, and Winnipeg's always up near the top because it's really it's not humid in those two cities, and they do a great job with the modern ice plants that they've implemented. That doesn't mean there aren't other arenas that have really good ice. You know who's got good ice? Carolina. Carolina has real good ice, but it is a frigid building. It is an amazingly cold building. Mm-hmm. Vancouver, for the longest time, had excellent ice. They really did. I haven't been to a game in Vancouver in a few years, so I don't know if that's still there. It's hard to make good ice at Madison Square Garden because the building's on the 5th floor, so all the heat rises, and the train station, this Penn Station, is right underneath. So that'd be one of the buildings where the ice isn't as good. And I would just say this from my time around Florida, not so much Tampa, because they've done Mr. Vinnick's done a good job there in Tampa. I think in Florida, the roof is so high. I think they have a hard time in Florida to maintain, especially once it gets hot during the playoffs. So I'd say those are probably two of the places that might have the most difficulty with ice would be New York and Florida.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Back in the day, it was easy. The old Boston Garden and Chicago Stadium. It was easy when I was coaching. It was crazy.
I was at both Fog games, Pierre, 88 and 90. I was there.
Man. People have no idea. I used to run these practices, and you had to be smart where you stood as a coach on the ice because you'd be looking at one part of the ice, and guys would be coming up the other, and pucks would be bouncing everywhere, and you could get KO'd right in the head. You had to be really careful when you were running practices.
Of course, remember we don't have time, but I think of the story you told us a couple times about the Scotty sending the guy, the equipment manager.
Oh, he did. He said, go to Brookstone and buy a portable air conditioner. And he wanted the players to have a treat. It was before Game 4 of the 92 Eastern Conference Final. So our equipment manager at the time goes and gets this portable machine at Brookstone, except he didn't buy an air conditioner. He bought a heater. So he put it in the dressing room, and Scotty's like, oh, this is going to be great. And the poor young man turns it up full blast. We come back to the room early in the afternoon. You can't walk in there. Like, you're going to melt. So our guys are dressing in the hallway. They put curtains up in the hallway.
The concessions are.
They're walking right by. Our guys are getting dressed before a playoff game in the NHL. And you remember the old guard, Jimmy.
Oh, yeah, man.
The fans are walking right by, looking behind the curtain. They're seeing Mario and you get dressed.
It was something. All right, next question. Ron LaRoe. Hey, guys, Pascal Vincent has done great things with young team. Not starting rumors, but which NHL team could use a coach like this to help out with young talent in the future?
Oh, I think he'll get another I do believe Pascal will get another opportunity. I don't think it'll be in this sequence, though. I think there's some college guys that,
right now.
Yeah, like, if you want to think about it, look at University of Massachusetts, Greg Carville. You can look at Nate Lehman at Providence College. You could look at David Carl at the University of Denver. I think they're guys that are in the food chain, so to speak. And I would just say this, and I'm not trying to start a fight with the NHL, and I'm not trying to start a fight with anybody in Chicago or in Florida. At some point, Joel Quenneville has to be back in the league.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, Joel Quenneville has to be back in the league.
Yep.
Stan knows, the Bowmans know what I think of their family. Stan's back. At some point, Joel Quenneville has to be back in the league. So if at some point somebody becomes enlightened enough to understand that, he goes to the top of the queue.
Mm-hmm.
He's not taking second. He goes to the top of the queue.
The other thing, too, and I can't speak for Pascal, but all I'm going to say is he seems to really have found a good spot right now. Like, I feel like from afar, he looks like he's really happy where he is right now.
Well, first of all,
the NHL,
Jeff Gordon and Ken Hughes have done a great job with Nicky Bobroff and their scouting staff, Marty Lapointe, and all the other scouts out there, and they know who they are. They've stockpiled that team. They got good players there. And it's not – a lot of those guys aren't going to play in the NHL, but they're real good American League players. They are very good American League players, and that's a hard league, Jimmy. That's a really hard league to play in. That's number one. Number two, Pascal learned coaching junior. Pascal learned coaching in the American Hockey League. Pascal learned as an assistant coach in the league. Pascal was a head coach in the NHL. So you do all this different stuff. It's what I tell you all the time. Everybody's in a rush. Pascal paid the toll in all these different places.
Yep. Good for him. All right, next question. WPHL, do you think the league offered any compensation to Yoni Pikkinen after they changed to no-touch icing due to his career-ending injury? I'd forgotten about that.
Well, there is compensation for players that have their careers ended because of injury that are sustained on the ice. I don't know if there was extra compensation. Yoni was one of my favorite players as a person, too. I was going
to say, I didn't know him, but
so many fun times talking with Yoni in different places. True gentleman, funny. He had a serious wit about him. I just really good thoughts about him. Olli Mata and Yoni Pitkinen are pretty similar type guys in terms of how they carry themselves around hockey and how they play. So I see that, and I'm like, I hope he did get compensation. I do. I hope he got extra compensation.
All right, next question. Michael Lemieux, do Habs need 13 wins minimum to get in? Norm says hi. Oh, that's okay.
That's what Mike's saying. Got it. Well, I said I think they needed 4 out of 6 points on this road trip, if I remember correctly, or the last part of the road trip, and that's why they have to win the next 2 games because they didn't win in Calgary, and and they got the extra point. They got a point in Edmonton. So losing Calgary 1-0, hard-fought game. Now they're into Vancouver. Vancouver scratching for their playoff lives. They got to get it done tonight, and they got to get it done tomorrow in Seattle.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question. Ethan Russell, what team do you think will be in the playoffs next year that are right outside the playoffs this year?
Detroit. I'm going to go with Detroit.
I feel like we're saying it every year.
Oh, it breaks. I mean,
no.
Those fans, by the way, Buffalo, Detroit, Winnipeg, those are serious hockey fans, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I had so many good nights in Joe Louis, both as a coach and as a broadcaster, and so many great nights in the old Winnipeg Arena as a coach. And, you see Kachuk play there. You see Mussolini, Dale Howard. Like, you go and look at all the guys that played there. There's so many good players. So many great nights with their electrified fan bases in those communities. Buffalo, the same. In the old Odd or in the new building, just had about 3 different names. But, yeah, I love those fans because you know what? They're real fans. There's not a lot of corporate seats there. Those people are paying their own money to go to those games. They are.
I'm going to say the Canadians if they don't make it this year. All right. What do we got?
That's
next
fair.
question.
That's a good one. I think Montreal can make it next year too if they don't make it this year. But if you were to put me up against the wall, I'd say I got to think Detroit's going to break through at some point here.
Yeah, they have to. All right. Next question. Randy Workman, do you think the Bruins will be at the cap limit next season? I guess I am wondering how the Bruins approach their
I don't
rebuild.
think so.
That's a good question, Randy. I don't either, and I would hope not. I hope they really approach it as at least a reset, at least.
I do think they'll be active in free agency, but I don't think they'll spend to the cap. I'd be really surprised.
All right, next question. Bill Van Viegel, rumor has it that the Habs received an offer of a second rounder for Armia. Are you surprised they didn't accept this, or is this a case of they have a lot of picks and only 50 pro contracts to hand out? I've heard those rumors, but I haven't been able to confirm it, Bill. So I don't want to really.
I would be absolutely shocked, and maybe I'd be wrong, but I'd be shocked if they turned down a second round pick for that player. Listen, I've talked with we had close to a deal done, and it did not involve a second round pick. Trust me, when I was in Ottawa. So, that I would be surprised.
All right, next question. David Robinson, should Ekblad have been more specific about what he took by mistake without consulting the team doctors and trainers? Is that deception by him, or is it the team league policy not to name the substance? Dave, Pierre, you would know. I would guess it's a policy that they tell him.
Well, I remember when Sean Hill failed a drug test when he was with the New York Islanders, and they announced that it was an oil-based steroid.
They did. Okay.
So I don't know what the parameters are. I don't know if that's been collectively bargained out or not. I have no idea. I really don't know. I wish I did, but I was there. Gordon Miller and I were doing it. It was a playoff game, and I believe he was the first player. You'd have to look it up, Jimmy, but I think he was one of the first players that missed.
Got whacked for that?
Yeah, because of that. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, next question. Ethan Russell, if you're Tage Thompson, are you going to the front office and asking for a trade if they don't make a push next year?
No, come on. Can we stop this stuff? Like,
I think, you go ahead, Pierre.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to say quickly, I get the idea that fans and media will have that, a player's going to want out of a situation like that, but let them come out and say it. And also, some of these guys, you got to remember, they're proud. They might want to stick around and right the ship. That might be their goal, is to be like, I'm not giving up on this. I want to be part of the group that turned it around in Buffalo. Don't doubt that.
I wish people would start looking at, I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you are. And I think we need to have more players like that. Buffalo's a good hockey market. It's a great hockey market. And those people are invested. Those players don't want to be going through this right now. Lindy Ruff's a winner, man. People can say whatever they want. Lindy Ruff's a winner. Trust me. Coached against him, knowing him, really respect him. Hard-working, industrious guy from the middle of nowhere, Alberta. And he's as hard and tough as anybody. And he cares about Buffalo. He went back to Buffalo to live. Like, he lives there. He loves it there. He's proud. Yeah. He doesn't want this happening with their team.
Exactly. And, I saw somebody the other night, which was a couple nights ago, the ringside reporter asking Tage Thompson, so did you let the GM know what you wanted him to do at the deadline? He looks like, that's not
who asked that question.
I have to go get I don't know her name, but I'll go find the name. But but he looked at it, he said, that's not my issue. Like, I need to just play. I'm here to play.
Good for him. Good for him for doing that. I respect the heck out of Tage even more. Yeah. Good for him.
The look on his face was just like, huh? Like, I'm a player, man.
So here's how it works. Owners own, presidents decide, managers manage, coaches coach, trainers train, players play. That's how it works.
Yep.
And once that chain is broken,
Then
you
you're-
lose.
Yeah.
Your
then you're-
team loses every time.
Yep. All right. Next question. I think we got 3 more. Ethan Russell, how many more years until Fraser Minton is an everyday NHL?
Next year.
Ooh, wow. All right. Next question.
Right now, once a team's eliminated, you can sign a player.
Randy Workman, when does the free agent sign? Can you
Right,
pull that up?
right now.
Oh, right there. There we go. Yep.
Once
All
a
right.
team's eliminated, the players can be signed.
All right. Next question. Ethan Russell, do you think Columbus did it right by not adding too much at the deadline?
So far, so good. They look good. They look really good.
Yep.
That Fantilli kid's something special.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next question.
Hey, you know what? I'm surprised you didn't go down that road, partner.
Yeah.
Big game, Columbus at Jersey tonight. I thought you
Yeah.
might go down that one. I thought you might just
Yeah.
That's huge for Jersey. And if they ever could do the double dip in the New York, New Jersey area, talking about Columbus after their 7-3 win the other night, big issue. That'd be massive for them. Massive.
Pierre, I'll tell you why, and I agree with you. It is, and it's probably the game I'm going to be watching. But when it comes to New Jersey, as my good friend Brendan likes to say, they're fugazi. You don't know what you're going to get. So if I'm talking betting purposes,
I understand. No, that's fair. They're obviously that's a good point. I don't, as you know, we don't talk about that when I'm part of it. But what I would say is the Hughes injury is almost a catastrophe there.
Yeah.
Just like his brother in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
Yeah.
That's tough.
By the way, it looks like he's out again. Quinn, that is.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. I think this is the final one. What do we got? FFFF. Question of the day. Saved it for the final one. Are the candles behind Pierre real candles or battery operated?
They're real. Oh, hold on. I'm being informed they're not.
Oh.
I'm at my brother's apartment.
That's a good one. That was the question of the day.
See, I don't even know. But my agent's sitting over here on the other side. Melanie is sitting here, and she
Beautiful.
said, no,
It is a great backdrop, though, Pierre. I like it. It's kind of like one of the ones they offer you here in StreamYard.
So here's the one thing I'd say to you, Jimmy. If you look to my left this way,
yep,
you'd be looking at Manhattan and the Hudson River. It's pretty spectacular. Yeah, it's a pretty good spot.
They play a lot of Frank Sinatra there, or what?
Yeah, they do actually. You know what? It's pretty cool that we're near where Elysian Field was, which was one of the first baseball stadiums in America. It's probably three blocks behind me, and there's a nice place called the Elysian Cafe, which probably would have been on first base back in the day. So now it's a cafe. But this is where Frank Sinatra was from.
That's great. Good stuff. I love Hoboken. It's changed a lot since I was younger. And you could.
So I was talking to our good friend Billy Guerin earlier today.
Oh, nice.
And so he said, more of the Devils back when he was here, they didn't live here because Hoboken's really gone through a regentrification. It's unbelievable how beautiful it is here now. But back then it wasn't as glamorous. And most of the guys lived in Bergen County, or they lived near Hackensack or all those different, which is probably around 35 minutes from here, but inland. And he goes, Zach Parise, he bought a place here, and he did really well here.
Nice.
So he was one of the first guys. He was one of the first guys to kind of get it in going here in the gear. Yeah,
it was probably a lot cheaper to buy then too than it is now.
Well, I remember Andy Green had a place here. Andy Green, who works for the Devils now. Andy Green had a place here.
Awesome. I spent the 4th of July in Hoboken once. It was great. Went to a Yankees-Red Sox game and watched the fireworks from Hoboken.
There you go.
Good times. All right. Listen, great job here by George Richards joining us from Florida Hockey Now. Thanks to him. Thank you to our production crew up in Montreal. Thanks to everyone in the Q&A section, and also all our viewers and listeners at home. We appreciate your support. And Pierre, you enjoy the hockey tonight, my friend, and we will talk, I'm sure. And
don't forget, I'm on with Tony tonight at 12:30.
Yep. And I also am not forgetting tomorrow, time change, just so everyone knows.
Yep.
We are on at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, an hour early. Again, that's 3 p.m. Eastern, and we'll talk Winnipeg Jets with our good friend Dan Robinson here on the eye test. Until then, Everybody have a wonderful night and enjoy the hockey. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.